So as we're about halfway through Season 12 of Formula E, and with the recent launch of the Opel team as well as the Gen 4, quite a few rumors have begun circulating regarding driver contracts and the transfer market for Season 13. So with like 5 months before we begin testing, I'd like to go over all the biggest storylines as well as the free agents in the market, and who could potentially end up where at the end of the summer. Let's start out with an easy one. The main Porsche team is currently leading the Drivers, Teams, and Manufacturers Championships, with Pascal Wehrlein the easy favorite to win his second title. He's on his A game right now, and it's going to be tough for anyone to field the challenge. In my opinion, unless he runs into some awful luck throughout the middle and end of the season, this title is probably his to lose. In terms of his contract, he's Porsche's man through and through, and I don't think he'd want to leave either. Genuinely, I don't think there's a single driver on the grid I'm more confident in returning to his current seat than Pascal Wehrlein. And in addition to it, he's already extensively tested Porsche's Gen 4 car. Nico Müller as well, I'm pretty confident in returning. While there was some doubt about him heading into the seat, he's currently sitting 5th in the standings with 2 podiums, and of course that win in Berlin. I definitely expect his contract to be renewed. He's also already tested the Gen 4 and is ticking basically every box Porsche needs him to right now. So for the main Porsche team in Season 13, I'm fully expecting them to retain their current lineup of Pascal Wehrlein and Nico Müller. Now Jaguar is where it gets a bit interesting. So far this season, they've had quite the redemption from how they started. From 0 points in the first 2 rounds to 4 victories in the last 6. They currently sit 2nd and 8th in points with Mitch Evans and Antonio Felix da Costa respectively. Let's talk about da Costa first. He's definitely adapted to the team well with 2 victories and really seems like he's enjoying his new environment. Plus, he's already tested the new Jaguar Gen 4, and so I definitely count on him returning. But then, we have Mitch Evans. In a bombshell move, he'll be departing the Jaguar team and is easily the biggest free agent currently on the market. Obviously, we all knew about the internal tensions between him and the team, and to be honest, I thought they'd finally make amends after da Costa was signed. But as we saw in Harama, things didn't exactly turn out how we'd like. Evans and Jaguar were basically the only thing that remained the same in Formula E since Season 3. They've spent 10 seasons together, and he contributed greatly to building up the team from basically nothing. And in return, he's become the winningest driver in Formula E history. Both Evans and Jaguar are still lacking that elusive Drivers' Championship though, and maybe after all this time, Evans decided he finally wants a change of scenery. Now this is far from the first time Evans has had offers from other teams. In fact, around 2021-ish, there was a serious bid from Porsche to snatch him away. He obviously declined that offer, but there are plenty of teams that could make him a more tempting one for next season, and the leading candidate seems to be Opel. Building up a team from scratch is going to be a tall order for the brand new German team, but having a Formula E veteran and one of the greatest FE drivers of all time on your side is definitely going to make it easier. So while it isn't confirmed yet, I would say there's an incredibly strong chance of Evans going to Opel. And with that, who would replace him at Jaguar? The leading choice is definitely their current reserve driver Stoffel Vandoorne. Vandoorne is obviously the Season 8 champion, but after a few mediocre seasons in the Gen 3 era, he was let go from Maserati after the Citroen rebrand. And while yes, his stock certainly isn't the highest right now, I think a fresh restart with a new team and generation of car could bring him back to his winning ways. This may mean that Vandoorne will have to give up his dual program with Peugeot in the WBC, but to be honest, that situation was a little murky even before this. Jaguar does have a few other options, such as their longtime sim and reserve driver Tom Dillman, but if you ask me, Vandoorne's the perfect driver for the role, and is already testing and developing their Gen 4 car as we speak. Nissan should be another interesting one to discuss. Defending Drivers' Champion Oliver Rowland is going nowhere. He's Nissan's poster child, and for good reason. His title last year was one of FE's most dominant, and while he hasn't won a race this season, he currently sits 4th in points with 5 podiums. Despite some speculated interest from Porsche last season, Rowland shot it all down to sign a multi-year contract with Nissan and has already tested the Gen 4. He's absolutely going to be with the Japanese outfit for Season 13. But then we have the case of their second seat. It's no surprise that Norman Nato is once again on the hot seat. After 5 straight years of switching teams, Nissan gave him a second chance when they re-signed him for Season 12, to the annoyance of many FE fans. Not to knock on Nato, he's a great guy and very quick on his day, but he just hasn't warranted keeping a Nissan seat that can easily compete for a title. Last year, when Oliver Rowland won 4 races and scored 184 points, Nato only scored 3 points finishes and a total of 21 points. And so far this season, he has 11 points to Rowland's 83. He might be that quiet, unassuming pick for a second driver that won't harm Rowland's title chances, but if Nissan ever wants to win a team's title, the championship that pays most of the money, they'll never do it with Norman Nato aboard. But who else does Nissan have on their radar as a potential replacement? Well, obviously, we gotta look at the reserve driver at the moment, Sam Bird. Bird, like Van Dorn, used to be a top championship contender in FE, but was forced out of the series after a few tough seasons. Honestly though, and this isn't me being biased, I think Bird actually has a decent shot at a return to FE in a similar way Van Dorn does. He has extensive FE experience dating back to the very beginning of the championship, and has used it to help develop Nissan's Gen 4 car. Bird also doesn't run the issue of a dual championship, as Norman Nato still competes full-time in the WEC, so that could be another point in Bird's favor. And well, if you ask me, I think no matter what, hiring Bird would be an improvement over Nato, as last season with Nato and Bird both in the Nissan powertrain, Bird for the customer team McLaren, he scored 10 more points than Nato did at the main Nissan team. Yes, Bird is 39 years old now, but for a short-term replacement to help kick off Nissan's Gen 4 era, honestly, he wouldn't be a bad pick. The other main options for Nissan are their rookies, starting with Abby Pulling, the 2024 F1 Academy champion, who set the fastest time at last year's women's test, but more impressively in my eyes, went 11th quickest at the Harama rookie test, quicker than names like Joshua Dirksen and Richard Verschoor. Unfortunately, I don't think Pulling has the experience yet for a full-time FE seat, but with more development time, she could be a contender a few years down the line. The stronger choice at the moment seems to be in current Williams F1 tester Victor Martins. Martins of course won the 2022 F3 title, and after 3 straight winning years in F2, switched gears full-time to WEC for Alpine in the hypercar class. But with Alpine ending that program at the end of the year, he'll need something to do, and Formula E could very well be it. Martins was 4th quickest in the Harama test and really impressed team principal Tommaso Volpe. If there was ever a time for Nissan to bring in a fresh name, this might be it. There is also Gabriel Mini, who Nissan ran in some of their rookie tests, as well as the rookie for practice in Miami earlier this year, but between Mini and Martins, I think Martins would be higher up on their list. So honestly, it really is a toss-up for me between Bird and Martins, if Nato is indeed kicked to the curb. Both drivers had benefits and their drawbacks, but if you ask me, I still feel like Bird would be the stronger pick, just to start out the Gen 4 era on the right foot. And you know, because I'm biased. Now Mahindra is a bit of an odd one. As we all know, they started out the Gen 3 era very slowly and have finally built their way up to being a genuine title contending team with their strong lineup of Eduardo Mortara and Nick DeVries. Starting with Mortara, who is currently 3rd in overall points with 2 podiums and 3 poles this year, it's genuinely been incredible to see the redemption arc for him. As after building himself up to a title contender in Gen 2 for Venturi, he started out the Gen 3 era very badly, and after being let go from Maserati, he finally seems back to his height. Unfortunately, I don't think he'll have a serious shot at the title this year against Wehrlein and Evans, but a top 5 points finish and certainly a win is definitely on the cards for him. Honestly, incredible considering Mortara is 40 years old now. But with his stock having risen considerably, he may have caught the eyes of Porsche, specifically for their B team. We'll go into a bit more detail when we get there, but Mortara may be the perfect fit for that fledgling operation, and although Mahindra would be hesitant to let him go, it might be an offer too good to refuse. But on the other side of the garage, we have Nick DeVries. Now if we're talking about DeVries at the beginning of the season, I'd easily say he was a top free agent and one of the strongest choices for basically any team. It's easy to forget that for Mahindra, he scored 3 podiums last season and a P8 in the standings, higher than his teammate even after missing 2 whole rounds in Berlin. But then we come to this season. After 8 races, he sits 14th in the standings with only 14 points to Mortara's 93. Yes, some of it has certainly been bad luck, but Nick hasn't exactly helped matters. Honestly, his stock has plummeted, and although he was in consideration for an Opel seat, I think that's changed now, especially if they can get Evans. Honestly, the best bet for DeVries might be to stay at Mahindra and hope for the best, even if their Gen 4 package is going to be a little delayed. Now, if one of Mahindra's drivers does leave, they have some interesting choices in terms of a replacement. First of all is Kush Maini. Maini is currently an Alpine F1 reserve racing in F2, but has done extensive testing for the Mahindra team over the years. He has a ton of testing experience by now and is consistently placed near the top every time he hops in an FE car. He would be a very solid pick for the Indian outfit should an opening present itself. The other driver I want to give a quick shout out to is Teofile Nail. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Nail ran his very first test in a Formula E car at Harama and actually went quickest overall for Mahindra. He's still only 18 years old and is currently in his first F3 season, so I honestly wouldn't expect him to be in serious consideration for an FE seat next season, but a few years down the line, he's definitely a name to keep your eye on. Envision's a pretty easy one. From what I can tell, both Sebastian Buemi and Joe Eriksson are signed to multi-year contracts, and for good reason. They have a really solid lineup, Eriksson's exceeded a lot of expectations this year, and they should re-up their partnership with Jaguar for next season. Basically, not much is changing here. Citroen is another team where I'm not really expecting any changes. Nick Casti, of course, made the big move over at the start of the season and has already won a race. Stellantis' package overall doesn't seem to be as good this season as it stacked up last year, but they may just be all eyes forward for Gen 4. Jean-Eric Vergne certainly hasn't been as good this year as he's been in the last 3, where his consistency has earned him top 6 points finishes, currently sitting 15th in the standings with 14 points scored, but outside of Cassidy, he's right where the other Stellantis drivers are. Honestly, I wouldn't expect a big move from this team. Vergne and Cassidy is still a very strong lineup with a lot of experience. Now this should be a little more interesting. For those unaware, Opel is joining Formula E next season, with full Stellantis support and are purchasing a license to expand the grid to 24 cars alongside the new Porsche team. And it's certainly an operation to be excited about, with Stellantis partnering with Mercedes high-performance powertrains for the development of their Gen 4 car. And of course, their star driver is expected to become Mitch Evans. Somehow, someway, they were able to convince Formula E's winningest driver to jump ship from the team he's built his career around and come join their empire. Their second seat, though, still has quite a bit of intrigue. As mentioned, Nick DeVries seemed to be in consideration at some point, as well as DS Penske drivers Maximilian Gunther and Taylor Barnard, more on them in a minute. But as of right now, the number one choice to slot into that second seat is going to be rookie Théo Pourchaire. The 2023 F2 champion has flirted with an FE seat for quite a few seasons now, and it finally seems to be the time to make the move. Outside of extensive testing experience over the last 4 years for DS, Citroen, and Maserati, he's already tested the Stellantis Gen 4 and seems all but willing to make the move. He'll likely have a dual program as he's currently a driver for the Peugeot hypercar team in WEC, but hopefully Stellantis teammate Nick Cassidy can talk him through it. Though not confirmed by any means, Opel's lineup will almost certainly be Mitch Evans and rookie Théo Pourchaire. Now we come to Penske. I've done a full video outlining some of the struggles this team is currently facing behind the scenes, but very briefly, Penske is splitting up from DS, so they'll need a new powertrain supplier. They have some of the capabilities to design and build their own powertrain, but this late in the game, I don't know if they have the budget or time to finish it and make it competitive. They could become a customer team, but with the big teams like Porsche, Jaguar, and Nissan having their customers already decided, they're stuck with one of the smaller packages such as Lola or more likely Mahindra. As a result, they're probably not going to be very competitive next season, which is a problem considering they have a driver lineup that they've already locked in that could very easily compete for a championship. I really feel for Taylor Barnard and Maximilian Gunther at the moment. Both have very high ceilings and deserve better than to trundle around at the back of the grid, but despite having contracts, FEN reported that they were both briefly in talks with the Opel team, and while I don't think a move there is likely, it proves that they're still open to jumping ship. Honestly, if I was a team like Nissan or even Porsche's B team, I would potentially look into them, especially Taylor Barnard. A Barnard-Rowland lineup at Nissan could easily win the team's title. It's just down to who this is convenient for, and if Penske can do anything to instill some confidence back into their drivers. Lola Yamaha, or Lola Yamaha as they will be known, are certainly an interesting one. They're really pushing forward for the Gen 4 era, expanding their base in Silverstone with new simulators, and although they haven't been able to test with their finalized Gen 4 powertrain yet, they've gotten quite a bit of running using a hybrid powertrain of Gen 3 and Gen 4 components. But on the driver's side, it was recently announced that after a long, illustrious career, Lucas di Grassi will be retiring from Formula E at the end of the season. This honestly caught me and many others by surprise, especially considering how much he's driven and helped develop Lola Yamaha's Gen 4 car. I was really expecting him to race at least one Gen 4 season before calling it quits, but I suppose that was up to him. It does create quite a big vacancy at the team though. Zane Maloney, their other driver, is definitely expected to come back. He's done quite a bit of running in the Gen 4, and so far this season, he's scored Lola Yamaha's only point at Sao Paulo, as well as a few good qualifying runs, even making 2 straight dual appearances in Berlin. Their other seat though definitely has a few candidates, alongside speaking with Victor Martins if that Nissan deal doesn't go through. They've also been in talks with Robert Schwartzman, who tested a few times in the Gen 3 car before joining WEC and IndyCar, both of which have fallen through, leaving him currently on the sidelines. Then of course we have Lola's 2 testers in Richard Verschoor and Hugh Barter. Barter doesn't have the most experience, placing 9th in the Miami free practice session and 14th in the Jarama test, while in Verschoor's first outing in an FE car he placed 1 spot higher than Barter in Jarama. Honestly, it really is a toss-up for who gets the second seat, but alongside Maloney, if I had to pick, I would probably want to opt for a Martins or a Schwartzman. Alright, time for maybe the most interesting team on the grid, and the one we know the least about, Porsche's second factory team. For those who don't know, Porsche is doubling down on their factory efforts for Gen 4, which now puts the grid back at 24 cars for the first time since Season 7. The thing is, we know very little about this team at the moment. We don't know what it'll be called or who will be leading it, The only thing we do know at this point is that one of the seats will almost certainly be filled by 2025 DTM champion Jan Guven. Guven's been on Porsche's fast track to the top for quite a few years, and although his career has mostly been sports car based, he could join the long list of DTM to Formula E converts including Pascal Wehrlein, Nico Müller, and of course the driver we mentioned earlier, Eduardo Mortara. Mortara would honestly be the perfect driver to mentor Guven. He came to FE after a long tenure in sports cars with a little open wheel mixed in there as well, and would therefore be able to help the Turkish driver who has very little open wheel experience. Guven's already got to test the Porsche Gen 4 and was 9th overall at the Harama test. It'll take some time, but I'm definitely confident in his abilities to adapt. But if Porsche can't steal Mortara away from Mahindra, who else do they have? Honestly, I'm not really sure. I don't think they'd be keen on promoting someone like Dan Ticktum for obvious reasons. Pepe Marti could be an interesting one, as he's easily been the most impressive rookie this year, currently sitting 10th in points for Cupra Kiro, but if you ask me, they'll definitely need a veteran for this second seat. And if they're available, if I was Porsche, I'd also look at the two Penske drivers. In terms of Andretti, their star driver Jake Dennis has already signed a contract with the team to stay on through the start of the Gen 4 era, and for good reason. He's still Formula E's most underrated driver if you ask me. But next to him, there are a few doubts about Felipe Drugovich. 8 races in, he finally scored his first points with a P9 finish, but the learning curve has definitely been steeper than I think he or the team expected, as he's currently well behind his fellow rookies Joel Eriksson and Pepe Marti. And I think the fact that Marti, with much less FE experience and in an outdated Porsche powertrain, is easily showing up the 2022 F2 champion, it can't be a great look behind the scenes. There is, of course, the Andretti curse to deal with as well, where next to Jake Dennis, Andretti hasn't been able to hold a driver in that second seat for more than a year. Could Drugovich be next on the chopping block? This team will be switching powertrains next season from Porsche to Nissan, which is definitely interesting, though it's prevented either of their drivers from getting much meaningful Gen 4 seat time. Andretti was also quite impressive with one of their rookies, Freddie Slater, who was 8th fastest in Harama, but Slater is still very young and likely not in consideration for a full race seat. I think there's still a very good chance of Drugovich returning for next season, but he definitely needs to pick it up. He's had a lot of bad luck this season, but he needs more runs like Miami, where he was genuinely in contention for a podium. Hopefully we'll see some more glimmers by the end of the season. Now finally we have Cupra Kiro, who we also know very little about. It's speculated that they'll finally become a full Porsche customer next season, replacing Andretti, who are going to Nissan of course, and if that's the case, I hope they keep their current lineup of Pepe Marti and Dan Ticktum. Marti, as I mentioned, has been incredibly impressive this year, currently 10th in points with 5 points finishes in 8 races, all as a rookie. Ticktum sits one spot behind in 11, though has had some truly awful luck this season, failing to score in all but 2 races. Both still make up an incredibly strong lineup, and I think with a fast Porsche powertrain, could easily contend for race wins. The problem is, this is Kiro we're talking about. They've never exactly been the most logical about their driver choices. Who could forget the infamous David Beckman experiment, where they canned their consistent, reliable driver of 2 years Sergio Sette Camara for an unproven rookie David Beckman at the last minute, who then went on to score exactly 1 point to Dan Ticktum's 85. Replacing Beckman for Marti was definitely a good decision, but recent rumors suggest that Cupra Kiro is speaking to Robert Schwartzman about a potential drive. I really don't understand this. You have a great thing going. Ticktum and Marti are both very strong talents on their day. Why would you want to replace one of them for an unproven rookie? Unless, of course. And well, there we have it. All of the driver rumors at the moment for Formula E Season 13 are the first of the Gen 4. Let me know your driver lineup down in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, subscribe for more Formula E content, and I'll see you all in the next one.